RevSaysDesu decided to take a swing and cover my recent videos. This video will be responding to Rev's video directly. Most of his opinions I have a contention with, which I will attempt to back up with my own reasoning, logic, and opinions. I only ask that if I address Rev's various points seriously, then I only ask my fellow natives to have a good faith interpretation of what I'm saying. If not, then so be it. Anyhow, let's not waste any time and just get into it. First, let's take a look at how Rev talks about Yasuke in his video.
They're basically saying that me and asmongolds are freaking out over Yasuke. We hate Yasuke because he's a black man in a video game, which is not the truth whatsoever. People are not criticizing Yasuke as a character in Ubisoft's implementation of this character because he's simply a black man. They're doing it because Ubisoft, through their own actions, have made a very dishonest portrayal of this historical figure while also claiming they are historically accurate and they respect Japanese culture.
I will say that the way coverage goes for Yasuke is usually talking about companies being cringe and what sounds like a bogus book, sure. I have been unfair on that front. However, I would then pose the question, is there any way to actually have Yasuke playable in the game at all, in your world, without pissing people off? Is there any ideal way to write in Yasuke at all? If the problem is that he's portrayed as a samurai, what if he isn't portrayed as one in the game, but still playable? Would that be okay? The reason why I tackle these points is because I think the same outrage would happen, even if Yasuke was depicted correctly and accurately according to the texts. If the issue is respect and historical accuracy, then there is still a perfectly fine way to write in Yasuke. If we agree on this point, then really there is no contention. However, since people are challenging the question on whether Yasuke could be classified as a samurai historically or not, I still want to tackle this question.
Meanwhile, they're claiming he's a samurai when that is a very highly contested claim.
It's time to bring up the topic of so-called black samurai again. This time, I did a little bit more research on this so-called black samurai question. The context of the Japanese environment at the time is important to know for answering the question. The Sengoku period of Japan was known as the Warring States period of Japan. Nobunaga, a powerful samurai warlord during that time, one of the three great unifiers, would take in an African slave named Yasuke. He was accompanying Jesuit missionaries as a professional bodyguard. So, is Yasuke a black samurai? Well, first, what's important to know about this time is that the definition of samurai is looser than the time that followed the Sengoku period, the Edo period. In the Edo period, samurais were specifically defined as having to fulfill one of three positions. You either have to be born into a samurai family, be adopted by a samurai family with permission from authorities, or marry a samurai. The reason the Edo period had much stricter legal definitions of samurai was because Edo was under the Tokugawa shogunate, which ruled all of Japan for that time. However, before that, the warring states were essentially all functionally separate countries in the one region called Japan. They were feudal kingdoms. So really, the definition of samurai was anybody who could hold a sword, received a salary to distinguish them from being forced into fighting, and most likely prove their prowess on the battlefield or through alternative prestige. Furthermore, you didn't have to be born into a samurai family or marry into one. Yasuke, in particular, was given weapons, land, a stipend, and was known for constantly hanging out with Lord Nobunaga. Was Yasuke a samurai title-wise? No, I personally don't think so. However, because of such matching attributes, Yasuke was more or less functionally a samurai anyway, since he fought alongside Nobunaga. Yes, there are people who were paid stipends who aren't samurai. Yes, there were samurai sword holders who weren't samurai. Yes, there were landowners that weren't samurai either. And yes, there were politicians and ministers close to Nobunaga who weren't samurai. However, not only do a lot of these attributes match up, but there are multiple sources from history that mention Yasuke's closeness with Nobunaga. Normally, I don't think a regular soldier would get that close to him. Even the topic of stipends and fast and loose rules for definitions could lean either way on Yasuke being a samurai by title, or a samurai by function, or even just a regular soldier. Ultimately, I don't think it's a big deal either way you choose, as long as you make an informed opinion based on the facts. However, the problem with most people who analyze Yasuke is that they do not go this deep into analyzing the history and authenticity of such things. Hell, even I think that Yasuke having full samurai armor in the AC trailer is too over the top, and most likely not the case at all. Dude probably just wore an armored vest. The reason why it's easy for me to say that people just get pissy when they see a black samurai in their Assassin's Creed game is because they never give Yasuke the time of day, because they are too quick to cry out DEI, forced diversity, and forced inclusion. They do this without actually sitting down to talk about what parts are done well and what parts are not done well.
But then I get hit with an age restriction and then that appeal rejected within 5 minutes for sexual content, including nudity, which obviously didn't happen. But they tried to, in bad faith, misrepresent what I'm doing.
See, I'm not even sure if RevSaysDesu watched my video because, first of all, I'm pretty sure I said that RevSaysDesu doesn't deserve to be age restricted or demonetized, and I thought YouTube's decision was unfair. So for the purpose of this video, I will assume Rev is in the right and it didn't deserve to be age restricted. The only reason I brought up the YouTube helpline with the so-called consultant or AI or whatever you want to call them is because you said on your own version of the video that you were starved for options when there was at least one option left, which was to turn to the help chat.
This is YouTube where they have no actual support, right? You have no actual contacts. And in this case, the only thing you can do is reach out to the Team YouTube Twitter account and try to beg for them to give you an actual review.
With a live representative, or you can pick the email option. Personally, I've picked the chat option every time. One was for my taxes, and one was for whether or not I was shadow banned. When I was doing it, there were pretty much no wait time, and the representative themselves have been really helpful.
This is YouTube where they have no actual support, right?
There's this misconception out there that the only way to get YouTube to help you is by tweeting at them, which is simply not true. What's also outrageous is the fact that Rev claims that he doesn't paint himself as a target for YouTube's de-algorithming. I criticize the gaming industry. Now, YouTube is silencing me.
It seems very targeted, and I've seen other channels also mention that they've had videos demonetized on this similar subject. It's very, very weird. Once the second Christmas is over, they go full Gestapo, right? They start going around and demonetizing anything they can because advertisers pull out.
This just doesn't make any sense because his video title was literally that. It's crazy how Rev calls me bad faith when he claims that I believe people shouldn't complain about YouTube, when I explicitly criticize YouTube. Yes, the demonetization process is bad. Yes, we all wish there were more human reviews of some videos. Yes, I know stuff like this taints your visibility. In that same exact segment.
And then they also disputed my claim that in January, there's definitely a downfall, a ramping down of ad revenue typically on YouTube because after the holidays, advertisers aren't as gung-ho with YouTube and their campaigns there because people they're broke from the holidays. They're not spending as much money. That's something that any creator who's been around long enough recognizes. It's a pattern. It doesn't affect everyone the same, but it's definitely a pattern that exists.
So in my video, the reason I criticized Rev is because he implied that the reason the video got age restricted and or monetization limited was because he cited January advertising as a reason.
After the holidays are over, there's no point for advertisers to promote themselves on YouTube because most people spent their money. They're not trying to spend any money after the holidays. They're broke. They've spent their money. So advertisers pull out. Therefore, there's very few ads on YouTube. So what does YouTube do? Well, they go around demonetizing people and trying to age restrict, and they go full censorship mode.
Of course, I understand if you're arguing that advertisers don't advertise as much in January on YouTube videos, but that's literally not what you're saying. You're specifically speaking on the restrictions YouTube placed on your video and the reasoning behind that. You're not talking about, oh, people get lower ad revenue in January or something. If that's the case, then I trust you. Where there's politics, there is asmongold falling off.
You heard it here, folks. Asmongold is falling off. He is fallen off, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I don't know about you, but like looking at the asmongold TV channel, like, I don't know.
I will say that using falling off is probably not the right terminology here, so that's honestly on me. However, I will say that as he begins to cover political content more, especially his more right-wing lean nowadays, he does suck more now. Maybe that's a better use word-wise than anything pertaining to falling off.
What are these criticisms? His eyebrows move too much, he makes funny faces, like, damn. What does it have to do with anything? Like, that's not legitimate criticism. So in this video, they're doing tricks on USAID. I cannot believe anyone defends USAID this hard. So Foodshops here tries to use an appeal to emotion, saying, well, one of those programs that's going to get slashed is cleaning up bombs in Cambodia. And Asmongold's reaction is pretty much like, I don't want to pay for the sins of other generations. I wasn't even born within 20 years of the Vietnam War. Why am I responsible?
Okay, so for this segment, I feel like I'm getting trolled here because I can't tell if Rev is trolling me genuinely. Because in a previous video that he literally covered in his, I backed up my emotions with facts about USAID. According to Pew Research for fiscal year 2023, USAID contributes $15.6 billion to disaster relief and aid, $10.6 billion in efforts to battle HIV and AIDS, and the rest of it to combat influenza, public health threats, and promoting democracy, with so-called promoting democracy only being comparably $2.3 billion. I also said that nuance is required when it comes to matters that pertains to sins of the father. A country isn't just the citizens, but the power structure in place, territory, and relations it has with the rest of the world. You can't just be an American citizen and benefit from being a citizen of the United States, but not also acknowledge the government is responsible for war crimes before you were born. I'm not saying that all white people in the United States should kneel before their black brethren and start kissing their feet for slavery, but rather there is a good gray zone where if something is obviously the government's fault, then it should be atoned for. It's basically having your cake and eating it too. We all universally agree it's a good thing that Germans learned about the Holocaust, but we all also kind of agree that Germans shame themselves a bit too much for stuff they aren't responsible for. Saying that I yap isn't an excuse to not watch the video that you're addressing and supposedly countering and debunking. But yeah, I mean, like, whatever.
But with smaller channels like this, it doesn't work that way, okay? The people have that phrase, there's no such thing as bad publicity. I think there is, okay? Like, these videos, the like-dislike ratio on this is like the Snow White live action trailer. Like, most people are coming here, they don't like what they see. The reasonable people don't like what they see. It's not helping you out in the way that you think it is. That's why I feel comfortable reacting to this video, because getting a 90% dislike ratio on a video is not growing your channel or making your reputation out there a very good one.
As for the negative attention YouTube channel part, I think that's fair, and I will acknowledge that not all attention is good attention. However, even though my videos get a rise out of people, I make them because I genuinely believe in the points I am making. I provide screenshots and video clips with full context included. I'm not going to change my opinions just because of a like-dislike ratio. A bad ratio is more indicative of me not making convincing enough arguments, or I'm hitting a group of people who aren't open to having their minds changed, which is also okay. That's up to them. That's their thing. If I change my opinion, it's because I genuinely thought about it, and then changed my opinion on it.
Yeah, there's a reason why this guy got absolutely trashed on. And then the other person they're referring to is, of course, Thomas Lockley, who we already talked about. 400-page fan fiction on this stuff that's been debunked. He also vandalized the Wikipedia page of Yasuke, changing the phrases from retainer to samurai, then using his own book as the source for that. How is that ever taken seriously?
I feel like I'm so out of the loop on this one, because I literally have not heard of Thomas Lockley until now. Rev says he is looking at what the public opinion is.
Basically what's happening here is that we're looking, or people like me, we're looking at what the majority seems to think. And it seems very clear from a lot of evidence that a lot of Japanese people don't like the portrayal of not just Yasuke in this game, but Japan and Japanese history generally when it comes to Assassin's Creed Shadows. They have a million reasons to be upset. All the controversies, all the historical inaccuracies. there's plenty to be upset at.
That's fine, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're making the right opinion, unless your right opinion is only based off of the most popular opinion. If everybody gathers to lynch a man, and that's the majority opinion, does it mean the lynching is correct? If everybody says they're offended by the betrayal of Yasuke and AC, does that make the opinion correct? Or would you rather look at the facts and the nuances of the matter?
People like me, we see this and say, yes, I understand Japanese people are not a monolith, but it seems like the reception in Japan is really bad. And I think that's a fair conclusion to make right here on this subject. Now, returning to this, they just yap on, and just going over some other things, it's honestly a waste of time.
Rev also brings up the like-dislike ratio on the Ubisoft Japan ACS trailer, but I literally don't get what he's trying to show. Is it because Japanese people specifically don't like it, or is it because a bunch of Westerners went to this video to press the dislike button? Anyway, that's it for this video. Honestly, if people thought about the points a bit more instead of instantly turning to the Yap Fest angle, there is an interesting discussion to be found in many of the topics addressed. Thank you for watching.